I want to bring in CBS News foreign correspondent Debora Patta, who joins me now from Johannesburg. It looks like she's at an election polling station there. Debora, I know that corruption has been a major issue in this election. The African National Congress, many people have said, has been tarnished by scandals. The party's leader and the current president, Ramaphosa, addressed those concerns earlier.
Corruption got into the way, patronage got into the way, and not focusing on the needs of our people got into the way.
Debora, how exactly is he going to fight corruption?
Well, that essentially is the point of this election, Rena. It is, in fact, a referendum on Cyril Ramaphosa, the president of South Africa and the current president of the African National Congress. He took over power from former President Jacob Zuma at the beginning of last year. He was booted out over a slew of corruption allegations and corruption charges. And since then, Ramaphosa has effectively set up a number of investigations and inquiries into corruption, and his popularity has always polled a lot higher than, in fact, his own political party. And he is widely tipped to win this election, but he is faced with a number of problems. He has a large number of political rivals within his party, and whilst many ANC supporters will probably vote for Ramaphosa, they question whether he can outflank these rivals, whether he can, in fact, get rid of the corruption that has become endemic in a party that essentially was one of the most revered and celebrated liberation movements around the world. And Cyril Ramaphosa will be battling against those elements when he takes over the reins, if he wins this election. And what he needs to do to rid South Africa of corruption is win this election convincingly. And by convincingly, I mean by a huge margin. He needs that margin so that he has the political mandate to kick out people who hold leadership positions right now and who are regarded as part of the old corrupt rule. And that's going to be very tough because ANC support has in fact been dwindling over the years. Rena?
You mentioned the support's dwindling. This is actually South Africa's 6th democratic election since the fall of apartheid. How is this election, this go-round, different from the past 25 years?
Well, as you pointed out, Rena, we're here at a polling station. It's actually at a university in South Africa, which is significant because it's young people who will be voting for the first time. Many here are voting for the first time who the political parties want to draw into this election. Now, 25 years ago, South Africans voted for Nelson Mandela, the country's first black president in its first all-race election. And you'll remember those iconic images of queues snaking around places like Soweto, which is such historical significance in this country. Today at 9 o'clock in the morning, Soweto was virtually empty. Hardly anybody turned out to vote. Now, that may well have picked up during the day and probably has, but nevertheless, it is nothing like the queues that we saw 25 years ago. A quarter of a century later, political parties, and particularly Ramaphosa and the African National Congress, are facing the disillusionment, really, of an electorate that is very disappointed in the government. So there hasn't been the voter turnout. We're here seeing young people voting, but not a lot of young people even registered to vote in this election. And that's going to be a very hard issue to overcome, and I'm sure will show when they have the final tally over the next few days.
And you know, one thing that's always troubled me about South Africa is the economic disparity. It's such a major issue there. Is there any reason for folks to be hopeful about that divide?
Well, you raise such an important point, and that effectively, Rena, is what the disillusionment is about in South Africa. Economic wealth is still concentrated in the hands of white South Africans. They really control the economy, and I've spoken to many people today who've said, what's the point of voting? Nothing has changed in 25 years. They don't have water, they don't have electricity, so why bother to go to the polls at all? And whilst racism has been made illegal in South Africa, what you see is economic disparity along racial lines. White South Africans hold the balance of economic power. Black South Africans still cut their lawns, they clean their homes, and they live a lot in poverty. There is rampant unemployment in South Africa. Ironically, we're here at a university which was the scene of fierce political battles over the high cost of education. A lot of black South Africans cannot afford the cost cost of further education in this country, and that too locks them out of the economy. And it's no wonder the World Bank called South Africa one of the most unequal societies in the world, and that will remain one of Ramaphosa's most significant challenges. Is there cause for hope? Well, one never wants to live without hope, and certainly Ramaphosa has the popularity to prove it. He is not corrupt. He hasn't been seen as corrupt. He is a businessman who understands economics, but the proof will be in the pudding. Will things change over the next 5 years if the ANC wins this election?
I was so disturbed to hear you say that turnout is down in Soweto, where Mandela's home, where he lived for many, many years. I'm eager to see how this election turns out. Debora Patta, we're going to be checking in with you tomorrow morning for those results. Thank you very much for that report.